Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar and thank you for taking your time out of your day to join us. My name is Billy D. I'm a client service executive here with Intrinsic, and today I'm going to tell you about the clinical trial management system. And before we get into the system itself, I'd just like to give you a little background on the company and how it came to fruition. So as you can see, there's two logos up on the screen right now. We have Pharmaca Consulting and we have Intrinsic Clinical Systems, and we have two gentlemen, Eric Lake and Matt Kiernan, listed right here. And the background on how this all came about is that these two guys, they work together for a company called Barnett Consulting, and they really liked the clients and the culture. And they were implementing CTMS systems back in the 90s, really when systems like Impact were the only game in town. And eventually their company that they worked for was purchased, and the culture kind of shifted, and they really wanted to recreate the culture that they love so much. So that's when they decided to go ahead and start Pharmaca Consulting, which is a pharmaceutical consulting company in the life sciences industry. And as they continued down in that industry, they were continuing to implement CTMS solutions for over the past decade. And when they were helping implement those systems, they would be in the meetings and listen to the people go through their systems, as well as hear the feedback of what people thought about systems they had just seen and systems they had worked with, and really hear a lot of information about all that was going on in the industry. So not only would we hear about the demos of the systems that were just being displayed, we would hear frustrations. Like we said, the pharma industry is very incestuous. People were coming from different companies. People had worked with a lot of these different CTMS solutions that were on the market. So you'd hear the frustrations they had with other systems they've used in the past and at other opportunities, and they would hear the same frustrations over and over again. So we just want to review those for a little bit. So the first the first complaint that they would hear is lots of CTMS, particularly the bigger ones, really they have 5 to 7 modules, but you really only need half. And a very good example of that is the grants module or the drug supply module. So people are unhappy that they're really overpaying for a one-size-fits-all solution when all you really need are a few key features. And then even after buying these one-size-fits-all solutions, because there was no other solution, there was no way to customize the tools so you could easily access the items you need, you're still searching through layers and layers of extra functionality. Another complaint we would hear is that clients felt the technology was antiquated and fell into one of two categories. Okay, the first type were the cash cows. They were expensive and had tons of existing clients, so why would you update it? They came to be operating under the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the second type were the systems that were half and half. And what I mean by that is the system is half out of the box and the other half you had to really build yourself. Another complaint was a fragmented user experience. There was 5 different ways to navigate to a same endpoint, which really makes it really difficult to train people and get used to the system and how to use it. And finally, we would hear that there was a really heavy IT footprint. The system architecture required heavy lifting from IT as the platforms they were built on varied. So I want everybody to kind of I know this is about our CTMS, but if you take a step back from, CTMS solutions, you think about all the different interfaces you've worked with, from, your email to Word to Excel, and think about things like you don't use, from your Google Maps to your iTunes, your digital cable. All these systems are becoming easier and easier to use, more configurable. And when you look at some of the screenshots of the interfaces on the screen, CTMS solutions, we didn't feel that they were following the same sort of pattern. We all love sleek interfaces with easy navigation. So, why are CTMS interfaces still living in the 90s? If you look at these screenshots, you see a lot of unnecessary navigation options and ribbons that really make the system really confusing to work with. Menu bars that seem endless. You see here, you spend more than 3 minutes navigating a system. You have 100 tabs open. There's so many areas open on the screen, you're not exactly sure how you got there or what you're editing. So after hearing the same pain points from clients and seeing the lack of innovation in these existing CTMS solutions, we started to wonder, what's the holdup? Why are people still working like that? And that brings us to, from Pharmaca to Intrinsic Clinical Systems. We built our CTMS to be light and modern, and really easy to navigate it. We built this in a way that someone who knows about clinical trials really wouldn't need any training on how to get around the system. The system is built using Microsoft Dynamics as the operational platform. We built a wrapper around a platform that people are familiar with. It's Microsoft. People know how to use these products, so the CTMS is really not going to feel completely foreign to anyone. We fall somewhere between the big expensive machines that have been around since the 90s and all the smaller startups that are pretty much cloud-based. Being built on Microsoft Dynamics means we're the only CTMS on the market with native Microsoft Office Suite integration, which means we're able to leverage SharePoint for the storage of eTMF documents, which I'll get into a little later. What else does being built on the Microsoft stack give us? It means users can do quick and easy uploads of data from Excel templates directly into the system, eliminating the need for, putting them in and possibly, human error going from Excel into the system. For data integrity, our reports use Power BI, so we can easily pull in the data from other systems like your CRO, your EDC, or drug safety systems that can all integrate with the data that's in CTMS to help you create reports from data that's either directly in CTMS or from other sources. We've covered dynamics and integration. I want to just talk about that easy navigation we talked about a little bit. On the screen here, you'll see there's a drop-down, and this is what we refer to as the general entities in the system. And we built all the options right here in this top menu as their own entities. They're all groups of information for all the clinical trials you're working with. And once people get up and running with the system, they say that they really like this non-traditional setup. And that's great feedback to hear, because that's exactly why we designed it that way. So just to recap, our CTMS has native integration with Outlook, SharePoint, and Excel. It's a CTMS that's built on a mature Microsoft platform. So what we're doing is we're leveraging Microsoft's world-class infrastructure. So it has affinity backups across the globe, so downtime is not going to be an issue. The platform is HIPAA compliant, so we talked about using your eTMF documents, using SharePoint. And what we've done is we've taken clinical trial information and put it on a mature platform that people are familiar with. So with that, unless there's any questions, and I don't know if I said this, please feel free to use the GoToMeeting interface to ask any questions at any point. But with that, I will just move over to the system and show you how it all works. And I know you guys can't see my interface right here, but I'm just going to go and check and make sure we haven't received any questions, and we have not. So I'm going to jump out of PowerPoint and go right into the system. So the first thing I want to say about the system is that it is a role-based system. It's not a user-based system like SharePoint, where you're going in and editing if you add Billy D to the system, you're not going to have to go in and select each thing that I'm able to edit. We have predefined roles in the system, so you go ahead and you assign a new user to that particular role, and that's how they have their read-write access, their editing access. It's very simple to just say, okay, this person is a study manager. This is what they can and can't do. Just because we get a lot of questions as I'm going through, and people say, well, I don't want my study managers to be able to do that. And it's very easy to set up what a study manager can and can't do, and then just assign a user as they come into that particular role. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the general entities, which I showed you the screenshot of when we were in the PowerPoint. So you click on the CTMS dropdown right here, and here's our list of general entities. And I like to think of these general entities as really having three functions. The first is you can view at a high level what's going on. So if I click on the studies, here I am at the studies general entities, and I'm seeing a tabular view of all of my studies and some of the statistics and things that I've associated with them. So phase information, milestone information with planned start, planned end, actual end, number of planned countries, actual countries, some enrollment information, some site information, all the way over here, some status information. So like I said, you can really see at a high level what's going on in the system. I'm going to come back to this after I get through the other two purposes of general entities. The second purpose of general entities is you can navigate to any particular study. So here we're in studies, so let's just go to a particular study country. And now you'll see that here we have the list of countries in the system, and you can just navigate to any one of these studies by clicking right here on the left, and then boom, there you are, you've navigated directly to your study country. And the third piece, the third functionality of these general entities is they're repositories of information. So really this is all the information that your study managers are pulling on when they're creating a particular study. So let's say that a study manager had created a project, a study country, and a site, and or a study country, and now they were looking to add the site. This is where they would select the list of investigators from. So they would go in here and find their particular investigator, and they would select it, and the institute that was associated with that investigator would all pre-populate. So you're not entering the information over and over again. It helps keep high data standards in the system. So like I said, more people aren't going in and entering that information. And on top of that, these general entities have something called duplicate detection settings. So if you were entering something like, let's just go back to the PowerPoint. We saw my boss's name was Matt Kiernan. If you try to do something like Matthew Kiernan, even though it's not exactly right, it would detect that as a duplication and say, hey, are you sure you want to add this person? There is already a similar entry, and it would display that for you. So that's a really great way of keeping those high data standards that we like to talk about in the system, and avoiding the same investigator entered with two slightly different spellings of the name. So like I said, those are the three pieces of functionality for general entities. You can view at a high level what's going on. You can navigate to anything that's blue that's highlighted here, and they're the repositories information that the study managers use when setting up the clinical trials. I told you I was going to come back to this first purpose right here of viewing at a high level what's going on, because there is a second layer there that you kind of want to peel back that all of our users really love, and that is you'll see there's some options up here in this navigation bar that you can add some new, you can delete, you can run some reports, but the really cool thing you can do is export to Excel. So as you can see here, if I click on export, I can export this as a static worksheet or a dynamic worksheet. Static worksheet, if I were to export this today on the 9th of August at 12:14, the Excel sheet would really be a snapshot of what was in the system at this exact time. If I were to go ahead and export it as a dynamic worksheet, what would happen is every time I opened and I saved that Excel file locally to my desktop, every time I opened it, it would refresh with the latest information that's in CTMS. So that's that kind of, we were talking about the benefits of having the system being built in Microsoft Dynamics, is that you can export a dynamic worksheet of what's in the system, save it locally to your desktop, open it in a month, and it's going to refresh with all the latest information. Any information that you added to any of these particular studies will be updated, and any new studies that you have since added to the system will go ahead and be displayed there as well. Yes, it will. Sorry, somebody just asked if the webinar will be available eventually. Yes, we will post the webinar online. Somebody's having a connection difficulty problem. Sorry that you're experiencing those issues. If anyone else is experiencing issues, please let me know. So as I was saying, sorry about that. If you want to go another layer beyond that, so we've talked about how you can export this as a static. If you wanted, let's say you wanted to give somebody an update who didn't have access to the CTMS and you thought they would really benefit from seeing this information, you export it as a static worksheet and you send it out. And then let's say you have somebody on your leadership team that really likes a couple key statistics from you but doesn't want to go through all this information, so really you export it as a dynamic worksheet, and every week you open it up and just type up what's in the spreadsheet and send it off. But let's say there's somebody on your leadership team that's looking for information that's not currently displayed in this general entity view. But it is in the system. It exists in CTMS. You're just not seeing it here. What you can do is you can go ahead and click on this selective view dropdown next to active studies, and you can create your own view in the system. And it's really very simple. As you can see, I have a Billy's view here. I have a budget view here. If I click on the budget view, you're going to see more things around the budget associated with these studies right here. And if I were to once again export this to Excel as a dynamic worksheet, it's going to refresh with all the latest budget information. So if somebody on my leadership team wanted the budget information and I didn't want to have to go into the CTMS to get it, all I'd have to do is open that information locally on my machine. I'd have it right there at my fingertips to be able to send off immediately. So really, these custom views are like an ad hoc reporting tool. So anything that you don't see in our out-of-the-box reports, you're able to create here with these views that you can create these views for any one of these general entities: investigators, institutes, study countries, sites, studies, project, anything that you want to see. In any of those general entities, you can create your own view. There's no limit to the number of views you can create, and I'll just show you how easy it is to bring in any information that you're not seeing. If I go ahead and click on New right here, oh, that was incorrect. I apologize. So if I go ahead and I just didn't name this one. If I go ahead and click Create Personal View right down here, you're going to see this interface pop up. And what you're able to do is here on the right, you'll see that there's an option to add or edit columns. When I click Edit Columns right here, a new window is going to open up. And all you do is select from this drop-down the information that you want to see here. So you're going to pull anything from the study level that you want to see. If you wanted to see actual screen failures because that was important to you, or if you wanted to see some milestone information like last patient enrolled actual date, any type of that information you wanted to see that was associated with this, you would just click OK. You would save it. You would name your view, and then it would appear in that drop-down right here. And moving the columns around and manipulating it is as easy as selecting one of the columns and moving it from right to left. You can move it to the very end. You can move anything to the very beginning. So really, you're able to configure these any way you want. I think that was everything I wanted to cover with general entities. Do you guys have any questions before I move on to specific entities? I don't see anything. There is just one extra piece of functionality I didn't talk about. I refer to these general entities, I'm sure you've heard me say, as sort of a tabular view of what's going on in the system. And because it is built by Microsoft, it's going to function, these tables, pretty much like Excel. So as you can see, there's a filter icon right here. So if I click on anything right here, I can go ahead and filter by a particular project name or a study name or a phase or anything like that. So you're also able to manipulate the data you see right here. Okay. So I don't think we've received any questions. So at that point, I'll jump into the specific entities. You're going to see me jumping around this ribbon a bit right here. So as you can see, this was the general entities drop down right here. Now, if I navigate to any particular, let's just say we're going to go ahead and take a deep dive into a study, and I select the study right here, you'll see that the blue ribbon up at the top now has a third icon right here with the study name, and that's displaying because this is the study that we've selected. And you see the caret right next to the name right here. If I click this, this has all of the specific entity information right here. So once again, this is all of the general entity information right here. At this dropdown, you're seeing all of the system-wide, the system-wide information. But when you click on the specific entity drop-down right here, this is where you're seeing things particular to this particular study. So you're seeing trip reports, you're seeing countries, sites, issues, enrollment, budget, things like that. Entire system-wide information, entity-specific information. If I were to click on an investigator name, the investigator's name would populate right here, and when I clicked on the drop-down, this would be all things pertaining to this particular investigator. Finally, the second button, the middle button, which I haven't talked about right now, is what I call the quick nav. So when you access the studies general entity, you're going to see this list of all the studies in the system. But really, study managers only need to work or edit or view the information of their particular study. So right here, you have a recently viewed, and it's an easy way to click around and say, oh, this is the study I need to go into. And as you can see right here, the study information is populated here on the page with the study name up here and all of the study-specific information right here. So that's the three buttons right here, and it was that quick to teach you, how to jump around the system. It's very easy, it's very user-friendly, and people get up and running with this in no time. Any questions before I move on? I think we do have a question. Nope, apparently not. Okay, great. So now I'll just show you a little bit more of the specific entity information. If you go in here, you can, for this particular, we're looking at the study. So if you go in here, you can look at the enrollment and baselining, which is a very popular one that people like to do a lot of work with. So if you go into your enrollment and baselining, this is where you can enter that information for this particular study. You'll see that here you're able to toggle between the years which you want to display in the tables below. And if you click on the actual enrollment right here, then now you're entering actual enrollment. So here is enrollment planned, and here is actual enrollment. Let's actually go back to this study 1001, because I think it's just provides a bit of a better real case scenario of what this would look like. And you're going to see that the study information is now changed in the navigation button right up here. And if I go ahead and click on the enrollment and baselining here, just has some actual information that's populated in it if I go ahead and click through everything. So here, and I'm sure it's in the United States, here is your list of years that you're displaying in the tables below. Here are all of your study countries right here. And once you select your study country, then you see your site information. The system does track enrollment at the site level, so you're able to put everything. If you wanted to add any plan screen, plan enrolled, plan screen failure for site 1, that's how you do it. And then every other site would just follow suit in that order. Then you would toggle over to your actual enrollment here, and this is where you could enter your actual enrollment. These enrollment tables are built off of milestones at the site level. So once you enter your first patient screened and your last patient enrolled, this table builds, and that's how you're able to enter this information. So you wouldn't be able, let's say you had an FPS of May 2016, you wouldn't be able to enter anything in these cells right here. So the system does not allow for enrollment outside of the parameters which you have defined with your site level milestones. If I toggle back to the enrollment planning selection, you see here that there is a baselining table as well. Here is where you would put any baselining information into the system. The original baseline, once you save this, it cannot be edited. And so you'll always have an original baseline and a current baseline. When you save this information, the date of the baseline populates right here. So you would be able to see, oh, I populated this on June 25th, and then I changed it on August 9th because something happened with enrollment. When we built this, the piece of information, the piece of feedback we got from our clients was that, while they liked tracking enrollment at the site level, they did not want a baseline at the site level. That would be overkill. So the baselining is done strictly in one table right here for the entire study, and the enrollment is done site by site. I know that's a lot of information I just gave you. I just want to pause to see if we have any questions. I'm not seeing anything come in, so I'm just going to keep going. Once again, please feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. So at this point, I just kind of want to walk you through the system from the study down to the site level. So as you can see here, we're just going to stick with our 1001 study. This is when you're entering your study information, this is where you would enter it. You see there's some associated project level information at the top. Here's where you would enter your protocol ID, any information. One thing you're going to notice about our system is there's very few of these red asterisks, which indicate that it is a required field. We wanted study managers to be able to get in, and that's the purpose of this. We talk about this webinar being, a CTMS your study managers will actually use. We've made it easy to get up and running with Microsoft. People are familiar with it, and on top of that, we've created very few of these mandatory or required fields for you to be able to save, because we didn't want people to have to have a bunch of information to put into the system. We wanted people to be able to get their information in and save their records as quickly as possible. So as you can see here, we only 4 required fields for the study, for study managers to be able to get in and create their study and save it in the system and have record of it. The system flows pretty much from top to bottom. Here you could enter any populations or subpopulations, any of the study contact information, the clinical trial lead. Here you see the milestone information, and there's some display information for you right here. This all rolls up from the enrollment table that I just showed you. And then when you get down here, if let's say there was no study countries right here, you had created your study, you saved it, and now you wanted to create a study country. You would click on this plus sign right here, and this is what we call the quick create option, which shows up. It expands from the top right here, and then you would go ahead and enter, look up your study country, and that's really everything else that is required is already pulled in from the study level, and you would save it, and then your study country would appear right here in this table. And then you would go down another level to the study country, and that's when you could enter more information that other than what was required, any other extra information you would want to enter right here. It flows top to bottom. It's going to be set up similarly to the studies page. Once you enter this information, you can click on the quick read in the related sites. And once again, it's going to show you at the top. It's going to be pretty much the exact same format. You enter in a site number that is unique to this particular study or country. And then once again, you just select your particular investigator, and this information is pre-populated because it's all associated together. And then your site would appear here as well. Once you get down to the site level, you've entered all your mandatory information. You could enter any contact information, any additional information that you wanted to. And this is the bottom level of entering the clinical trial information. You go from your studies to your study country to your site. Anything that is associated with the site, you would go up here. And here we have, once again, that specific entity drop-down information. So you see things, I think that the thing that most people work with is milestones. So I'll show you that. There's milestones at every level of the system. You can see that there's able to put in planned and actual date, and then this is how you would put it into the system. It's a very simple calendar lookup that you select the date and save. You cannot populate an actual date in the future. Actual dates have to be either take place on the current date or previously in time. A lot of times people really like to get the information into the system a lot quicker. And if, like I said previously, we can, in the PowerPoint, I said we can build connections via APIs to other clinical trial management systems, CRO, EDC information to pull this in. But you can also do a very simple import-export. So if I click on the import-export button right here, a new window pops up, and then you'd be able to filter on any information you wanted. So if I went ahead and let's say I wanted to get all of the milestone information in for this particular study, I could filter by a specific study name, and I could go in and select it, and I could just select that 1001. And now I would be able to only look at sites that were in that 1001. But let's say I wanted to take a step further, and I have to have all my enrollment information in the system by tomorrow, and I have not populated any of those first patient screens or last patient enrolled, and I don't want to have to go in to every site and enter that information. I just want to be able to enter my enrollment information as quickly as possible. You could go in here and just type in first and search for first patient screened, and select that and add it down here. Then I could do last patient enrolled and search for that, put that right here, and now it's going to filter out. So like I said, the enrollment table is built off of first patient screen and last patient enrolled. And now I could go ahead and say, well, I need to get enrollment information for all of these sites in. And in order to do that, all these milestones have to be populated. This way, you're not going in, you're not navigating to every site and entering this information. You're just going to export this particular, this filtered view to a static worksheet. I'll just open it really quick so you can see. And what you could do is you could now just enter any of this information in right here. And when you upload it back into the system, everything would be exactly as you put it in here. You would save this, you would exit out, and then you would just click back on this. Oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. You could just click the upload option right here. So import data, you would find that file and import it, and all of your milestones would be able to come in. Once again, this is another great way to do some sort of ad hoc reporting. If there was a particular set of milestones that somebody really wanted to see, you could come in here and just do every, you could go ahead and nix this filter right here. If let's say I want to see it for all studies. I want to see first patient screen and last patient enrolled for all, not just that particular study. You unselect, you hit OK, and now you're going to see FPS and LTE for every site in the system. Let's say you only wanted to see for 3 sites. I could go ahead and do it there. You could go ahead and any way you want to manipulate the data. It's very similar to Excel. You could do that. Any questions before we move on to the reporting? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions come in. So the system comes with out-of-the-box reports that you can access so if you go up to the, I should go a little slower, if you go up to the general entities drop down and click on the dashboards, here's where you could see all of the visualizations that are in the system. As this is our demo environment, you're going to see a few more because we, things that we're testing and currently displaying. But if you were to select any one of these visualizations, if I were to click on Portfolio Summary, what happens is it was going to open up the Power BI. So this is the reporting tool that Microsoft uses. If any of you are familiar with the Gartner reports, this visualization tool was just ranked in the top 3 this year with Spotfire and Tableau. So these are if no one's had any time to check it out, it's a really great tool. We'd customize this by putting your company's logo up here, and I'll just walk you through these out-of-the-box reports that we have. So the first report is this portfolio graph. As we've organized them, they really go from like I said, portfolio level information to study country to site. So there's really, I know there's a filter call out here, but there's really no filters for this because this is supposed to be a portfolio level. You're looking at your entire portfolio of studies. So here you see them grouped by therapeutic area, by program, or by compound. There's also these tables over here, so you could see a little bit more of how they were broken out. If I click on the next level, you're going to see this portfolio summary. So here we have this table that shows, all of the portfolio information, therapeutic area indication, things like this. The report, and this is a good juxtaposition, because what you see is you're really going to see reports that are heavy with the visualization and then more of a tabular report type of thing. So the next one we have here is a study enrollment status report. So if I click on here you're going to see, this kind of a mixture of the two. At the top here we have study level information where you can see % countries active, sites active, period % complete, and some enrollment information right down here. Like I said, now that we're getting down and we're not looking at everything across the portfolio, now we'd be able to filter by a particular study. If I go ahead and click on this particular study right here, that's not a good one to pick actually, so let's find another. And then the information appears here at the top. You can see if you had multiple studies, you could select, they would appear here, and the table filters below as well. Next up, we have the study startup graph. So here, this is pulling off of the actual milestones. If any one of these IP shipped, IP received, IRBEC approval, IEC submission, if these things have actual dates, then the color is going to appear here in the table. And once again, you could filter by any particular study that you wanted to. If I go to the enrollment graph, people really like this enrollment graph right here. So if we go ahead and we pull out a filter, so we can filter on a particular study, and I will go through these boxes right here. Go ahead and select my juvenile diabetes study that I believe I have right here, and unselect this one. So now you're going to see the filters at the top to let you know exactly what study you're looking at and everything that's going. The table goes from left to right, and here we see our enrollment actually start to take off in April of 2014. The legend is right here letting you know what you're looking at in the table, but you can also go ahead and kind of drill down using these icons over here on the right to look through and say, okay, well, this is patients enrolling. Here we have patient screening. I want to go ahead and look at sites, planned versus actual. You're able to click through and see all that information, which is nice sometimes because there's a bit of a lot of times there's much fewer sites than there are patients enrolling. So it's, if you get there, it's kind of hard to tell. Sorry, I should have clicked all. It's hard to tell exactly where one. So as you can see, the sites down here are so small. So it's nice to be able to go in and look into a particular site. Next up, we have the site startup graph, which is very similar to the study startup graph, triggering off of these milestones. Next up, we have the site event dates. So this is a tabular report showing you the information. You can filter on any particular study, phase, indication, country, anything you would want to filter out so you can see exactly what you were looking for. Next up, we have the site enrollment status report. This report is, Excuse me, this is a tabular report showing you the enrollment for the particular sites that you have in the system, that bringing in the date information, the enrollment information. Once again, the filters function the exact same way on the right, with you being able to filter on what you wanted to see. And these were other reports that we're working on right now. So that is going through the system, going through the reports. The last thing I wanted to show everyone was the ETMF. So let's go back to that GVB study that we have right here. And once again, we have our general entities, we have our quick nav up here, and then we have our specific entities, and we're seeing the name of the study, GVB ST1. And if I click up here at the specific entity dropdown and I click on documents, this is where you see a list of the documents that are contained in SharePoint, right? So these are all the documents that we currently have. Really, this isn't where you work with the ETMF. This is just kind of a window to quickly view and see exactly what you have here. And you can see the path that all of these files are saved on and things like that. If you go ahead and click on the open location to the ETMF SharePoint site, this is where the actual ETMF lives. This is where all your documents stay, because we've navigated from that particular study. That's what we're seeing, but I'm going to take you to the home screen, and it basically outlines our process where users can upload files they submit, and then to a TMF. They can tag them with any sort of study or country or any type of information they want, view them in a variety of ways. This button right here is for the administrative users. There's a variety of configuration settings. And all of this is then outlined over here. You see upload. If I go, let's just go through. For the purposes of the demo, we're going to walk through the left-hand navigation. So in terms of getting a document into the ETMF, we click on the upload documents right here. And if you click on this section is where you can take documents you have locally saved that you want to upload into the ETMF, and you click on the upload button. You browse your library, and you're able to select and upload into the system. Anytime you see any documentation down here, it would be anything that was been uploaded in the past 24 hours and needs, you could tag right then immediately. Now we go to the tags documents. There's a couple ways of getting documents into the system. We review documents uploaded, so this is where all the uploaded documents would go. As we saw, you can upload very simply from just selecting from your library. This is where everything that needs tagging. As you can see, I don't know how well you can see my screen on the display. All of these yellow fields need to be tagged. So what we would go is you can go ahead and click on any one of these information things, and you see that the country is not tagged. And you can click on any of the countries that are currently being used in the system. As more and more countries were being selected, they'd be displayed here. Once the files are tagged with type, subtype, classification, and status, you'll be able to view them under the View Documents section, but they need those four. Once again, those were type, subtype, classification, and status before they moved to the View Documents section. For now, staying here in the tagging section, let's review the documents emailed. So we built this as part of the app where, users like a site coordinator has the ability to email a document, and the email address is study specific. So once a study coordinator emails a document to that email address, the document gets stripped off the email and goes into the ETMF section here, docs emailed. And you want it to come here because then what needs to happen is it needs to be tagged. And again, the 4 meta tags I mentioned before, those are the same 4 pieces of information to go to the document viewed. The other key thing here is that there are fields that are auto-assigned based on who it came from. If I navigate on the left here to where you can see add a site contact, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but this add our site context really helps highlight how the docs emailed work. So after all your documents, so anything that came from Matt Kiernan is going to be tagged with this information right here, the first name, the last name. Oh, sorry, my system froze up for a second. But you saw first name, last name. It's going to assign, it's going to show the date it came in, it's going to show anything that comes from Matt Kiernan is going to be tagged with this particular site and this particular country. This can always be edited if a study manager moves from another, from one particular study to another, and you need to edit this. But as of right now, anything that comes in from these people, this is how it's going to be assigned with this meta tag, this meta information right away. I think that now so after your information it's either uploaded, after your documents are either uploaded or emailed and then tagged, you can view them in a variety of ways. You can view all documents at once. So if I click on this view all documents, you're going to go ahead and see everything that's been tagged. You can view, you can sort, you can filter just like you would with a SharePoint table or an Excel. It makes looking for something specific very easy. If you wanted to look at documents for a particular study, you could do that. If you wanted to look by type or subtype, we go right here. So here, all of the information, type and subtype, these are all, we follow the DIA reference folder structure for how this information is stored and tagged. We can, of course, do any type of folder structure that your company has in place, but that is how we do it. We follow the DIA folder structure. So that's what you're going to see here, and that's how everything is sorted and organized. So if I click on trial management right here, you see that trial oversight, trial team, database, general, these are the pieces of information, and that's the information that you're selecting when you're tagging. Any type of this information that you select, this is where it goes, this is where it gets filed away. I think I had a question come in, so I will go ahead and look over at that. Can the CTMS be used as the e-regulatory binder for sites? That's not a question I've received, and I'll have to check and get back to you. I do have the name of the person who submitted it, so I will, of course, look into that and let you know sometime in the next 24 hours. That was everything I wanted to get written to today. We talked about the background of the system. We went into an actual deep dive into the system itself, where I showed you those general entities, the specific entities, enrollment, milestones, things like that. Showed you how it's all reflected in Power BI with these out-of-the-box reports, and then showed you how the system can be used also as eTMF, and either uploading yourself or emailing with that auto-assigned data. But that is everything I had for today. So unless we have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Do we have any questions, or are we good? I have not received anything except for the 2 questions we received so far. So thank you for the questions we received. I will get back to the person who reached out to me, and I'll give everybody about 15 minutes back to their day. Thank you all for signing on, and have a great rest of your day.